The last thing I remember before waking up in the ICU was rain. Hard rain. The kind that turns headlights into streaks and roads into mirrors. Then a horn. Then nothing. Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe, because every voice deserves to be heard. Don't miss out on the journey. Subscribe, and let's grow, laugh, and learn together. When I opened my eyes, the world was white, cold, and full of machines. A monitor beeped steadily to my left. Something tugged at my arm. My throat felt raw. I tried to move, and pain exploded through my ribs so sharply I gasped. A nurse appeared almost immediately. "Easy," she said gently. "You're in the ICU. You've had surgery." I stared at her, confused. "How long?" I whispered. 2 days, she said. 2 days. My mind scrambled to catch up. The crash. The rain. My phone on the passenger seat. The truck that came out of nowhere. Then the nurse smiled softly. "Your emergency contact was notified." I nodded weakly. Good. My parents would be here. Whatever our issues were, surely this was different. Surely an ICU bed changed things. I drifted in and out most of that first day. Every time I woke up, I looked at the door. No one came. By evening, I asked the nurse, "Did my family visit?" She hesitated just long enough for my stomach to tighten. "Your mother came briefly the first night," she said carefully. "And my dad?" She looked down at the chart. "No." My throat tightened. "What about my sister?" Another pause. "No visitors besides your mother were logged that night." I stared at the ceiling. It didn't make sense. My sister, Brianna, posted everything online. Airport selfies, coffee cups, inspirational quotes over beach sunsets. If someone had told her I was in intensive care, she would have at least shown up for a photo. Unless she already had something else planned. The next morning, when I was finally allowed my phone, I opened it with shaking hands. 43 unread messages. Only 3 were from family. The first was from my mother, sent 2 nights earlier. "You're stable. We'll talk later." That was it. The second was from my father. "Doctors say you'll recover. Focus on resting." "No, I'm coming." "No, we're here." The third was from Brianna. A photo. Her smiling at an airport lounge with a champagne glass. Caption. "Finally, Grease Girl's trip starts now, airplane Yellowheart." Timestamp. For hours after I was admitted to the ICU, I stared at the screen. So long it dimmed. Then I brightened it again and checked the family group chat. My mother had replied to Brianna's photo with, "Have fun, sweetheart. Don't worry about anything here." My father had added a thumbs up. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because the alternative was crying hard enough to rip my stitches open. This was my family in one screenshot. I was in intensive care after nearly dying. And they were making sure Brianna's vacation stayed stress-free. That was the thing about being the less loved child. People think it's dramatic until you can literally chart the pattern. Brianna's dance recital, my fever could wait. Brianna's graduation brunch, my job interview could be moved. Brianna's engagement dinner, my surgery consult wasn't that urgent. Every crisis in my life had always been measured against her convenience. And somehow, I always lost. But this was different. Because an ICU isn't a missed birthday dinner. It isn't a rescheduled lunch. It's where people go when doctors aren't sure what happens next. And still, my parents chose her trip. I set the phone down and turned my face away. I told myself I didn't care. That I was 32 years old and old enough not to need parents hovering at my bedside. That healing alone was still healing. But there's a specific kind of pain that comes from realizing no emergency will ever make you important to the people who were supposed to love you first. That afternoon, a middle-aged nurse named Elena came in to check my 4. She had kind eyes and the kind of calm voice that made people tell the truth, even when they didn't mean to. You should have someone here when discharge planning starts. She said, I'll manage, I replied. She adjusted the line and gave me a look that said she'd heard that before. Then she hesitated. She began carefully, one unusual thing. I frowned. What? She glanced toward the door, then back at me. Someone's been coming every night. I blinked. What? She nodded. Very late. After visitor hours. ICU exception clearance. I stared at her. My mother? She shook her head. No. My chest tightened. Then who? Elena looked uncertain for the first time. That's the strange part, she said quietly. The visitor log lists the same man every night. I swallowed. What man? She lowered her voice. The one signed in as. She glanced once more at the clipboard in her hand. Father. For a second, I thought she had to be mistaken. My father never came. I said immediately. Elena nodded slowly. That's what I assumed too. But the log shows someone checked in under ICU family exception every night since your surgery. My heart started beating faster. Show me. She hesitated. I'm probably not supposed to. Please. A few minutes later, she returned with a clipboard. My hands were shaking before I even touched it. There it was. Visitor name, Daniel Mercer. Relationship, father. Time in 11:43 p.m. Time out, 2:12 a.m. Then the next night, same name, same relationship. And the night after that, I stared at it, confused. My father's name wasn't Daniel. It never had been. What is this? I whispered. Elena looked at me carefully. Do you know him? I shook my head. No, but something about the name felt strange. Not familiar exactly, just close, like a word you almost remember in a dream. I kept reading. Same signature every night. Same neat handwriting. Same quiet presence no one had mentioned. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked. He requested privacy. Elena said, he never disturbed your care. He just sat with you, sat with me, while my actual parents sent vacation-safe text messages and thumbs-up emojis. My throat tightened. What did he look like? Late 50s, maybe early 60s, she said. Tall, gray at the temples, wore the same wedding ring every night. Wedding ring. That detail hit me for some reason. Did he say anything? Elena hesitated again. Only once. I looked up. What did he say? She lowered her voice. He thought you were asleep. My pulse quickened. He touched your hand and said, she paused. I'm sorry, I wasn't allowed to be your father. Everything inside me went still. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at Elena, like if I blinked, the words would rearrange themselves into something easier. But they didn't. That night, I asked her to let him in if he came back. At 11:47 p.m., the door opened quietly, and a man I had never seen before stepped into my ICU room carrying the kind of grief that looked old. He stopped when he saw me awake. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he said my name, so softly it felt like he'd been holding it in for decades. I'm Daniel, he said. I nodded once. I know. His eyes filled immediately. He sat beside my bed and gripped the chair like he needed something steady. Then he told me the truth. My mother had an affair 32 years ago. My father knew. Daniel knew. And somehow, instead of a scandal, they made an arrangement. My parents would raise me, but only if Daniel stayed away. No custody, no involvement, no truth. He said he'd followed my life from a distance. Birthdays, graduations, milestones through old photos, mutual contacts, and whatever scraps he could find. And when he heard about the crash, he came every night, showed up,